So you're right on that point, that it's not at 50%, because you still have the fuel, you still have the driving, you still have the dumping fees, the equipment that needs to be repaired. So that's the savings there. There may be some further savings in the equipment that we haven't quite pinned down, but you are right on that point. I think we all can agree that this community has had challenges with illegal dumping over the years. This is not the first time this has been a challenge, but especially this summer, as we mentioned at our last session, through the leadership of the city administrator, have crafted a partnership with the land bank to utilize their stimulus-funded crews. So unlike last summer, where those guys really didn't get going, and the council approved dollars for weed and trash didn't get going until the second half of the summer, those crews are going to be starting that first full week of April, and they'll make multiple loops through the entire city. So those crews will be able to do what you might call some light cleanup, getting trash into the back of a pickup truck, and with the weed and trash. They obviously, we need some support with 40 tires, and make sure we get that referral so we can take care of that one. Okay.
One other thing too, I would like to know what was the level of sanitation trucks, I guess, running prior to us going to the bi-weekly. Is the level going to still be the same? The amount of trucks that's going to be out? I don't know how many trucks are at the level that we had last week. Is it going to be the same amount of trucks that's going to be running even though they're going bi-weekly?
No, it is less trucks because we've reduced the number of crews.
Okay.
So you do have, and we haven't pinned that number down. The approximately $1 million estimate that I provided is primarily the personnel savings, but there may be some equipment and wear and tear savings because there'll be less less driving of those trucks.
Okay. Now, last thing, what are we going to do with the excess trucks?
Well, we hope to soon be able to announce this Department of Energy award that you all had previously approved the allocation on, and there were some significant dollars in there to help us further analyze this whole waste system. The compost, if we can do the recycling, and then the sanitation. My vision that I've talked about for some time is that we get to a point where we have a more efficient overall system that is doing compost, recycling, and trash collection. And if we can work together on some things through the budget, it's possible that our residents could be looking at a cycle where you 1 week have a trash collection, and then the next week you have a recycling collection. And then you could have each of those trucks equipped for those responsibilities. So we have to have a lot of discussions and approval before we get to that point. But that would be a system that would protect our workers, because they could potentially, if we do it right, be lifting less. And it could also get some material out of the waste stream so we don't have to pay as much to dump it at the landfill.
Okay. That's it.
Councilwoman Poplar.
One last question. Mr. Mayor, during the summer months, would it be possible that the constituents could take their own garbage to the dump without being charged? If they're willing to do that. If they're willing to take it somewhere and dump it, well, they should be able to take it to the dump and dump it without charging them something. Is that possible?
We've had that suggestion from some others, so the city administrator can share a couple ideas on it.
Mr. Administrator.
I want to double check that and get back to you.
We've been looking at it, but yeah.
Because some of them are going to dump it somewhere anyway.
Right.
So if they could possibly dump it in the correct place, maybe that would help us. Thank you.
Councilman Sargentson.
Are we going to combine the meetings or just keep going?
If you want to, we can do that.
We can just continue discussion as we go.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I prepared a statement about
Is it on this?
on public safety. It's not on finance, but
That's all right, because I know Councilman Wayhill had some more follow-up. I don't know if you wanted to flow into the next meeting.
Well, let me just say that the chief has basically answered my police department questions. I did have one other question for the mayor. He mentioned, or you mentioned the Department of Energy grant. What's the status on that right now?
We hope to be able to announce it soon.
Okay. I had heard that we had gotten
Already
it.
got it.
Is that's not the case, or you're not able to say?
Well, we're not prepared to discuss the details of the announcement tonight.
Okay.
That is
So-
understandable given the circumstances.
What
But you approved the allocation. We've been dealing with public safety challenges.
Well, we're talking about budget.
It has been.
Right, so,
finance.
I mean, you know what the city council approved. You approved the allocation, and that's what we're continuing to work
I'm
on.
not sure what you mean when you say we approved the allocation.
This body had to approve before that could be submitted, a category of expenses. It was a one-page document
Right.
that listed, I don't know, 12 or 14 areas where those dollars would be allocated. So you have in your files, you know, what those dollars were.
So
were dedicated
you'll
for.
come to us at some point in the near future telling us how we're going to achieve the objectives in that
Right.
grant? Okay, thank you.
Based on those allocations.
Okay.
And why I want to know about it is because those objectives ultimately are going to be cost savings for the city. So how long are we going to wait to move forward with it? Will we have something in committee, do you think? Week from Wednesday?
Yeah, sure, yeah, we will. And I mean, the good news is that, you know, not previously knowing how quickly the federal government would be able to act, we know that we'll be able to utilize some of those dollars here in this fiscal year. So at earlier points, that was not clear whether we'd be able to take advantage of any of those dollars in fiscal year 10, and we're confident that we will be.
Just one more follow-up from him, and then we can roll into yours and
Okay.
go from there. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You know, I want to reiterate this, is that this community won't be saved just by cutting. We're going to have to realize some revenue-generating entities. We're going to have to look at, you know, cost recovery programs for our public safety. Much like the Out County areas like Davis or Swartz Creek, Grand Blanc, if they respond to a down power line, I believe they charge Consumer Powers $1,300 right away. That is a way to generate some additional revenue. We have to generate revenue with our code enforcement. We have to generate revenue with our recreational departments. And then after we do all these things and turn all these things, to make these things effective, we may have to look at another tax. That may be just something that we may have to do. I know it's a big word when you say tax, but you may have to look at it to maintain the level of service for this community. But by our own city assessors' evaluation of this year, parts of our community has devalued 20%, 15%, 10%, and that's going to be realized in property taxes next year. So we're going to find ourselves back in a situation next year. We're going to whittle down the city if we don't find additional revenue streams to support ourselves. Now, the administration has to look at maintaining some services for, you know, recreation, residents, safety. You can't do much with education. But these are the fundamental things, the infrastructure that supports public life in this community. Nobody's going to want to move in this city, and I said this earlier, what they perceive to be a dirty, unsafe city. And I'm fearful, as we push into the northern parts of our city, where we have the blighted conditions already, that it's going to get worse. That fire, they fight fire, but they do many different things. They're the first responders to anything that happens in our city. And many times these commercial entities, these ambulance services, don't respond to Russell, Piper,